American Airlines Flight 191. For 10 evenings in succession in 1970, David Booth had a similar bad dream. While somewhere down in rest, he saw a jetliner veering off a runway, flipping totally finished, and afterward blasting into flames. Booth felt constrained to advise the FAA about his fantasies. Authorities really tuned into what he needed to state and reasoned that he was longing for a Boeing 727 or maybe a DC-10 plane. On the day that David Booth had his last bad dream, American Airlines DC-10 Flight 191 slammed only a couple of seconds after departure. One of the plane's motors penniless free, causing a lopsidedness. The plane flipped on the runway and burst into flames. All 273 travelers on board passed on. LYNYRD SKYNYRD plane crash. Some vibe Ronnie Van Zant ridiculed destiny when he loaded up his band's plane only a day after the motor was faltering flares. Van Zant expressed the accompanying words on October 20, 1977 preceding venturing on board: "Hey now, how about we go? On the off chance that it's your opportunity to go, it's your opportunity to go, his time it was." The plane went down, colliding with a bog in Mississippi. Van Zant, his guitarist Steve Gaines, Steve's sister Cassie, and Chief Dean Kilpatrick all kicked the bucket on Sway, alongside the two pilots. Survivor Artemis Pyle saw awful scenes. For example, a headless pilot and Dean's speared body. Band vocalist Joe Billingsley professed to have had a striking hunch of the plane accident the day preceding it occurred. Zant had as of late requested that her arrival to the band after a takeoff because of medications and liquor dependence. The day she consented to meet him, she longed for a plane colliding with the ground. Her fantasy turned into a reality the following day. Sharon Tate. She remembered him as Paul Byrne, the house's previous proprietor. The main issue was that Byrne had ended it all years before. Sharon fled from the spooky figure, down the steps, where she saw a figure with its throat cut open. She fixed herself a beverage and afterward headed back upstairs, by and by fantasizing the casualty on the steps and Byrne's spooky form. In the years that followed, Sharon turned out to be progressively persuaded that the dead figure on the steps was her. She told the same number of individuals as she could about what had occurred during that night, yet that did nothing to spare her. 3 years after the fact, 14 days from conceiving an offspring, Sharon and her unborn kid became casualties of Charles Manson and his Manson family clique. She was wounded to death, and some wrongdoing reports express that she was dangled from a crossbeam in the lounge room. The house where she kicked the bucket stood only a mile away from where she had seen the spooky feeling. The Titanic. An eerie arrangement of mishaps went before the sinking of the RMS Titanic. The sea liner nearly slammed into a vessel as it pulled out of the harbor in Southampton. Some said a feline and her litter left the boat, which was viewed as an indication of misfortune. After the sinking, individuals designed bits of gossip. A reviled mummy was locally available, said a few, so obviously it sank. Others guaranteed a champagne bottle neglected to break at the boat's initiating. These stories and a lot more have since been debunked. Many individuals profess to have predicted the sinking through hunches, and we can't excuse them all as more stories made up sometime later. A portion of these individuals really would not board the boat, likely sparing their own lives. Anne Ward was a servant to the Cardeza family, who purchased the most costly suite on the Titanic and endured the sinking. She wouldn't board the boat subsequent to having a feeling that something awful would occur during the launch. Major Archibald Willingham Butt had a hunch too, however didn't remain off the boat, yet he prepared his will before boarding, dreading accurately that he would not make it back to Europe alive. REEVA Steenkamp'S painting. Paralympian Oscar Pistorius shot and killed his better half, South African model REEVA Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day 2013. He professes to have confused her with an interloper, and as of April 2014, his homicide preliminary is as yet ongoing. REEVA's mom, June Steenkamp, told a news analyst that her girl had her very own feeling demise and made it into a work of art at 14 years old. The artistic creation depicts REEVA as a holy messenger remaining at the base of a stepping stool prompting paradise. Far away out yonder, she drew a man. He has a weapon in his hand. The blessed messenger looks panicked. Her hands spread her mouth. REEVA isn't here to clarify the image's actual importance, obviously, however her folks are persuaded that it delineates her demise in a chillingly exact way. Littleton school shooting. In 2010, a shooter strolled into Deer Creek Middle School in Littleton, Colorado and started shooting. Nobody kicked the bucket in the episode, not by any means the shooter himself, yet 14-year-old Matthew Chu ended up in the clinic, at first in basic condition. Speaking to columnists while recouping, Matthew Chu professed to have had a hunch of the shooting a very long time before it occurred. He said he had a fantasy about a shooting that turned turbulent. In the fantasy, he was shot and was detracted from the bedlam by paramedics. Matthew and his mom accept that the feeling was an admonition of the shooting occurrence. It was likewise a sensible bad dream for the kid to have. Deer Creek Middle School had decades recently encountered a lethal school shooting, and the well-known Columbine school slaughter happened only 5 kilometers away. Hurricane Katrina. Jeremy Driscoll, a Benedictine priest living in Oregon, was tuning into a report on the risks of typhoons in Louisiana when he out of nowhere had a dream. He saw the Gulf from a northern heading and could make out the province of Louisiana out yonder. The land appeared to be feeble, not ready for any catastrophe. A tropical storm at that point came in and demolished the state, but then nobody was executed on the grounds that the territory was abandoned. Father Jeremy didn't have a clue whether he had seen a dream of the past or the future, until Hurricane Katrina hammered into New Orleans in August 2005. Jeremy's vision was to be remembered for his book called The Monk's Alphabet. Be that as it may, the editors decided to exclude it, as they felt individuals could never trust it. Sandy Hook School Shooting. Logan Dreyer went to Sandy Hook Elementary School until about 14 days before the unfortunate shooting that killed 20 youngsters and 6 grown-ups. Logan's mom Karen had become progressively stressed when the 5-year-old kid began having alarm assaults in school. Doctors could discover nothing amiss with Logan. At the point when the chief attempted to relieve him, his mom says he shouted, "No, no. It is anything but a sheltered spot. I am terrified." The kid visited companions during the time he was at home, yet he turned out to be extremely disturbed during these visits. As if, claims his mom, he knew something horrendous would before long hit them. The catastrophe occurred in December 2012. Karen Dreyer trusts her child had distinctive feelings about the shooting. In spite of the fact that doubters call attention to that they were likely simply irrelevant fits of anxiety, Karen says Logan acquired his grandma's mystic capacities, and they spared his life. 9/11. Much like the Titanic, the occasions of September 11, 2001 started various paranoid ideas, urban legends, and reports from the individuals who guarantee to have anticipated the tragedy. Wall Street official Barrett Naylor says he had 2 hunches about the World Trade Center. The first came in 1993 while he was on a train to work. A mind-boggling feeling revealed to him he needed to get back, and he did as such, and resultantly missed the shelling that morning. 8 years after the fact, a similar sentiment of fear by and by forestalled Naylor from heading off to the Twin Towers. He got back to see them consuming on live TV. Naylor worked in account. He was a pragmatic man with no tendency to have confidence in the powerful. However, hunches appear to have spared his life on 2 events. World War I. Carl Jung's investigations into therapy included deciphering others' fantasies, yet in 1914, he had some noteworthy dreams of his own. He saw the entire ocean go to blood, with large numbers of bodies suffocating in yellow waves. At that point he saw a virus wave freeze a whole nation, murdering everybody. Jung considered this to be a feeling of war, and he thought further dreams of floods, water extending from the Alps toward the North Sea, spoke to the appalling channels that troopers had to endure. He encountered his last dream in June 1914. A little more than a month later, on August 1, World War I started.